Well, hey, everybody, I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. Nice to have you back on the channel. We've got a real exciting guest today. This is a gentleman that was brought to my attention by Tracy Dyer, who's one of our crack moderators. Again, not a moderator on crack, but just a crack moderator. And she does a lot of research. She does a lot of looking through YouTube and is a very, very deep mind, obviously, as you know. And she sent me an email that said, you got to look at this guy, Tony Sayers. And I started looking at this guy, Tony Sayers, and a really interesting YouTube channel. It looks like the channel's called Tony Sayers Transcending Times. A lot of great videos, a lot of very interesting stuff. Tony, I do a bad job introducing you at this point, so why don't you introduce yourself to our audience and welcome to the Christian Whistleblower channel.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, it's good to be here, and thanks for your listeners to tuning in. So it's good to get the message out to those as well. Yeah, so as you say, I'm Tony Sayers. I have my own YouTube channel, which is Tony Sayers. And basically where my work has led over the years is about 5 or 6 years ago, becoming aware of certain things that were being put out there that weren't true, and then realizing that actually we were being poisoned and maimed and all that stuff. And kind of exposing the kind of surface level, third dimensional stuff. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, I had something that happened to me, which basically led me down to the rabbit hole, which was the start of leading me down to the rabbit hole in which I am now. So essentially, for people that haven't heard where it started, basically I put out a video about 4 years ago, basically questioning the military, just saying that what we're doing in these countries, we're making rich people get richer, etc., etc. You know how it goes. Anyway, long story short, this video went viral, and I woke up to 40,000. Well, it had 40,000 hits overnight, and it had got into military circles. And I woke up to about 10 death threats in my Facebook inbox from all these military guys who were just doing their nut at me. And so it was pretty intense, and you know, at the time I didn't really understand the energetic consequences of psychic attacks, and I wasn't scared per se, because I'd always said that, you know, I'd give my life for truth and that kind of thing. But after that incident, I was walking around in what seemed to be like an energetic soup. I was getting heightened anxiety, which was very strange. Very tired, just like a thick smog around me. And I knew it had to be linked somehow to what was going on with what these military personnel were talking about, or talking about me. And anyway, I was desperate. I tried meditations, I tried detoxing, and nothing worked. And then one day a lady contacted me and she said, look, I'm doing this work. It involves chakra removal. It's helping people. What do you think? And initially I was like, oh, because I'd done Reiki and all that stuff and worked with chakras. But there was a part of me that thought, do you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if that was all BS as well, you know, and how typical of them to make the most beautiful looking things, you know, the rainbow colors, be really quite evil. And essentially it was explained to me that these chakras are basically artificial overlays that allow interdimensionals to come in and lock into us, so to speak, and siphon off our emotional energy, our low vibrational, our sexual energy. And this is essentially what they were. And so at a level it made sense, and I also, out of desperation, I think, because I tried everything, went ahead with this. And so I had this session, and then the next day I can't tell you, I just felt like a different person. This cloud had lifted, and it was amazing to me. And so from there I thought to myself, well, you know, if this is true, which I can feel it is in my own energy, then I need to tell other people, and I also need to learn how to do it. And so that's what happened. The lady synchronistically lived next to me in terms of countries at the time, and I spent some time training with her, and then I started running my own sessions, and then essentially my own psychic abilities started to increase from there, interestingly enough, and clear visual abilities, clear audio, intuition, insights. So this whole chakra removal also opened me up to my own abilities more so than it had before. And I was starting to see implants and attachments on people. And so it's gone from there into what it is now, where it's also now removing etheric implants that hijack certain parts of the body, key areas of the body, like the heart, the pineal gland, areas that they want to really shut down for obvious reasons. And yeah, kind of hybrid technology, which basically it's as above, so below. So it's the technology that we're starting to see manifest here, or has been manifesting here for the last couple of decades, which is already etherically implanted on us. So we're talking neuro implants, neuro laces, different types of technology, amplifiers, different devices that are kind of doing the same thing that they're doing in the third dimension in terms of siphoning our energy, surveillance, monitoring. All that stuff is already going on in the fourth dimension, and this is where the work has gone in terms of removing those etheric implants. And now it's even gone a step further from that, because now I'm also discovering that humans essentially walking computers. We all know that on a 3D level we can be programmed by television and repetition, and that's why politicians are always telling us that we're free. And but also on an etheric level, we also have algorithms running through us. So we're basically programmable. We have interfaces, different stuff that we already know that's coming out now is also infused in the biological makeup. And so this is where the work is, and it's almost turned into like hacking a computer. So essentially, once you figure out the computer, we're basically walking motherboards, and it's as above, so below. So, as we see this play out on computers, and we all know that, or there is an awareness now that this reality is holographic, and that we might be in some kind of computer game. Well, this is what my work is tying into, and this is what I'm finding actually on the etheric body, basically. So that's it in a very short nutshell, basically.
Tony, that's fascinating work. And as I'm sitting here, my respect and regard for Tracy Dyer, who again recommended me to you, or you to me, my respect and regard for her goes up, because you're sitting there talking and I'm sensing and feeling all of these correlations between our work. And it's very interesting. You talked about that, just feeling that the chakras were, I forget, did you say they were inorganic? Well, how did you put it? That they were not good for us? What was the kind of your kind of base thought?
Yeah, so they're artificial overlays.
Yes, yes.
So basically, if you imagine them as like plugs, so as many of your listeners and you will know as well, we share this reality with many different types of being. It's just because we're basically blind, we can just see such a small bandwidth.
Exactly.
Visible light. There's all this other stuff kind of in the same space. And what the chakras are doing, it's almost like a gateway for them to lock in and siphon off our energy, mind looping. So the other way they get in on people is they get in on our subconscious woundings. So they know our blind spots even more than we know ourselves. So if you've got an abandonment wound or a betrayal wound, they can come in, lock in on the chakras and loop these mind thoughts round and round again, ramp them up. There's also technology as well, which amplifies these thoughts to heighten that. And this is a very important point. This is particularly for people that are on the path of truth, or trying to look beyond the veil, because your average Joe who goes down the pub watching the game, generally they get left alone. I mean, they're still probably hosted to some degree, but if you're people that are really trying to look beyond the veil, seem to be, in my experience, and with clients that I work with, this is definitely the case, more targeted. Mm-hmm. And so it makes sense when you look at because they need all this low vibrational fear, anxiety, stress, argumentative, that's all like loosh for them. That's what they feed on. So if they're looping these mind loops around, and so automatically we're producing more food for them, it completely makes sense. And this is why, obviously, on a wider scale, we're constantly seeing war, we're constantly seeing dramas, traumas, because that collective negative energy is also being looped out around and fed on. But and many people have spoken about this, but it's the how. I guess where my work's going, it's the how they're doing it, and part of that is through the chakras and other overlays and implants we have. And it's not just the chakras is such a small part of the work that I do. It's like 0.001%. We have many other overlays. We have grids keeping us from connecting to our soul tribe, our soulmate. This is why many of us feel very isolated and we feel very alone, because when we get together, we're much stronger. Our access to our spiritual power has been overlaid by about 50%. Our nutrition has been overlaid by about 50%. So what they're doing essentially is they're giving us just enough to power the batteries, but not nearly enough to really, step into our power. So the body of work I do and in sessions goes far more than just the chakra removal, but obviously the chakras is what everyone focuses on, because they're so, within the new age, new cage movement, they're so, everyone loves them, and there's a lot of resistance to this as well. But it's a huge body of work, really.
Tracy described you as a new age whistleblower. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I quite like that one, actually. Yeah, I can't stand it. I mean, it's just Satanism dressed up, really. It teaches bypassing, and the problem is people are gravitating it like bees to honey, because it's all love and light. It's all angelic. It's all, just ignore anything negative, and because you'll draw more of it in. Never get angry about anything, because so it just teaches bypassing, and you can see where it's come from, because ignore anything negative. Okay, so if you've got a controlling force that wants people to stay passive, what better way to teach people than to just ignore anything that's negative, right?
Absolutely.
So you can see that it's Luciferian in its nature, but of course it's dressed itself up so very well. And, what I'm finding in sessions is these, what I call false white light beings that people are giving their energy to, these angels, aliens.
But Terry, don't you know that all you have to do is ask them, are you of the light? And they have to tell you the truth.
Oh, of course, they're going to tell you the truth. Yeah.
We laugh, but people really believe that. And it's because of this new cage movement, and it's incumbent upon us to say it's not right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and this is what I'm saying, like, there a lot of people out there are damaged and traumatized just through childhood, were not their fault, but they're gravitating to the new age, and they're people are coming to me and they're feeling worse. Many cases they've done some kind of ritual with some kind of archangels, and and they're coming off, they're feeling depleted of their energy. And so it's what people need to understand, and I think you understand, and probably a lot of your viewers do, because you all see, you are on board with this already. But these just as we see so-called good beings that have our backs in the third dimension, in terms of politicians that are basically deceivers, this also extends to the fourth dimension. And so we have so-called benevolent beings that are masquerading as good when actually they're not. And it's genius how they've set this new age up. As an opponent, I tip my hat to them. But
absolutely.
Obviously, I hate what they're doing and I hate what they've done, but how they've done it is genius, because they've tapped into everyone's insecurities, everyone's vulnerabilities, and they've able to kind of direct them into another cul-de-sac And what I'm saying at the moment is there needs to be an awakening from the awakening.
Ooh, well said. An awakening from the awakening. Talking with Tony Sayers. That's a great quote.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it is starting to slowly happen now. I'm seeing it through my work, and people are realizing that they're being hoodwinked to some degree. But yeah, it's a very deep rabbit hole, this, and one that needs to be blown wide open, as you say. So if she's referring to me as what did she say? New age
whistleblower.
Yeah,
because I'm called the Christian whistleblower, and that was actually thrown at me, I believe, on Coast to Coast by somebody derisively, and I thought, like you, I quite like that, so I took it and adopted it. And everything you say about the New Age is the same exact thing that they did with Christianity, only it's just got a different twist. So it's meet the new boss, same as the old boss. And for a great example, I came across this about 3 or 4 years ago. I think it was more like 3, where I realized, still coming from a strongly biblical concept, and a lot of our listeners are, we know that if we believe the Bible story, Genesis 1, whether it's true or not, describes us being created as spiritual beings in the image of divine. Genesis 2 talks about this other God who came in and made these bodies out of clay. And that's what we got tricked into, Tony. And those bodies made out of clay have the chakras in them. So he can always, and it's no doubt that he teaches there's 7 archons, there's 7 chakras. And I realize those things are there so that these dark entities can have access into us.
Absolutely. The chakras, essentially what we're talking about is AI technology. The chakras is AI, essentially, in the etheric. And so what they've also done is they have us born into pods as well, which also ties in with what you're saying. So we're born into these pods, similar to what you see in the film The Matrix.
Yes.
And within those pods, we have a lot of the overlays and the chakras and the other AI and the manipulation. So part of what I do, and it even has the plug in the film of The Matrix, the plug in the back of the neck. We actually have a plug in the back of the neck that gets removed.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all hidden in plain sight. So all of these things is essentially AI technology. AI for me is really the head of the snake. And people talk about the Illuminati and the reptilians, the draconians, and yes, those things are all trying to dominate and control and siphon our energy, but they're also podded up. They're also being used by AI, which then also ties into this transhumanism agenda, which we're seeing, well, not even playing out now, because nanotechnology is already in the body, nanobots, that kind of stuff. And the end game is they're going to sell us all this, health benefits. We're going to be able to cure dementia with technology. We're going to be able to cure Alzheimer's, and so they, like they always do, they're going to give us the benefits first, and then the dump in the punch bowl comes when they say, well, you can have everlasting life if you did upload your consciousness to a computer before you die. And so, then all of a sudden our consciousness is trapped in a computer forever. And that's the end game really with it all. But all of the chakras and all this, it's all AI technology.
It's amazing. And again, it's just the same game with a different name, because this whole salvation matrix within Christianity, if you get right down to the original languages, I was 20 years a pastor, 100,000 hours in the Bible, so I know what I'm talking about, at least in this regard. When this whole thing of come to me and have eternal life, we think that's, we go to eternal life, we go to heaven. No. What they're saying is, come to us and have eternal life of your mortal body. Your mortal body will be quickened and recreated. And we don't have to think too long and think of why do they want us coming back in this, because they want to continue to feed off of it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just amazing, the synchronicities and the way things tie together. And something else that you mentioned, I think, is really important. I just want to emphasize it. You talked about this tendency towards isolation, and isolation is not helpful to us, is it?
No. As I said, that there's something about when we come together. I mean, this whole reality is based on divide and conquer, right? I mean, we see it play out in media, you know, black versus white, England versus France, gay versus straight, rich versus poor. So they have to keep us divided, because
in the USA against everybody else, Tony, because we're the only ones that are right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the biggest divide and conquer at the moment is men v women. You know, there's all this feminism there, and there's the third wave feminism and all that kind of stuff. So it's a constant divide and conquer. And so interestingly enough, and this is really one of the algorithms that I've found, and you can actually Google this, that we actually have running through our etheric body, is called the divide and conquer algorithm. Okay. So we actually have a divide and conquer algorithm that runs through us, which is obviously, you know, ties in with what we're seeing in the third dimension. So again, it's as above, so below. Yeah. So the more we're divided, the less chance we have of coming together. Because although these guys are evil, they are on the same page and they do work together. So, and that's what humans are not doing, unfortunately. And yeah, on a deeper level, when we get together with like-minded people, like I say, in our soul tribe, or even a partner that we can, you know, really kick ass with, then it's even more of a threat to them. And so what we find is that there's a lot of interdimensional interference in relationships when you get two kind of conscious people come together, or, you know, so it all gets heightened, and so they try and throw spanner in the works in every way, in terms of, you know, keeping us separated.
You know, it's almost a little bit of a catch-22, Tony. I can see people thinking that, because on the one hand, we want to be careful and not to align ourselves with error, you know, New Cage and a lot of the error that's going on. But at the same time, we don't want that to cause us to not want to join together and quit looking for people out there that are helpful. Chris Jericho has a song I just listened to before I came on. He's the wrestler, Talk is Jericho podcast, and he has a band called Fozzy. And there's a line in it that just jumped out to me today, obviously synchronicity wise. And the lyric is, isolation only makes the hurt worse. So even though it's hard to find our tribe, we can never stop looking and not be satisfied until we find one another. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, this is where the internet is helpful. I mean, for example, you're in America, I'm in Mexico. We would never have met. Right. It's like all of these things that they put out there is a dark side. So, I mean, you look at the word, right? The web. What is a web? It's an entrapment. Okay. It's actually telling you, but we can always flip these things to our advantage. And this is something that's happened with the internet. I think that was one of their biggest mistakes, because the cat's already out the bag now, in terms of, you know, the people that are raising awareness. I mean, they're trying to put the lid back on it, but you know, it's too little too late. Too many people are aware. And it's
Tony, having tried to put a cat back in a bag before myself, it's not easy.
No, absolutely. But it's actually quite entertaining watching what they get up to. You know, on a 3D level and in a 4D level, how panicked they are. And I was just saying this.
Oh, yes.
I was just saying this to a client I was working on this morning, that, you know, on the surface it looks so chaotic right now, but underneath that is them panicking. You know, people are not buying the BS anymore, or some people are, but more and more people are not. They're starting to look up from the TV and say, hang on a minute, this isn't right. And then you've got all the Prince Philip stuff coming out now, which is blowing the royal family, thank God, like open. But I also see this on a fourth dimensional level as well, because when I have people that come for sessions, they are so interfered with. Even if they just start thinking about having a session, suddenly their internet goes down or their Skype goes down, and you know, you can see how they just, you know, they just hate it. And So I think before any kind of great change, I think always there is chaos beforehand. And I think this is where we're at now. So what I'm saying to people is, all right, you know, it looks bad, but energetically, there's stuff going on that we're not aware of that's really worrying, you know, these entities and AI and everything like that, because it's all a matter of frequency and consciousness. If we can get enough of us on board and raise our frequency, raise our consciousness, then, you know, this stuff will hopefully cease to exist.
Tony, how would you respond to the theory that all the people that are talking about gloom and doom and fear and how terrible things are and collapse, everything's going to be horrible, horrible, horrible? How about the idea that they're actually right for their world and their frequency that they're living in? But on the other end of that, with a great destruction of a matrix, and as you've talked about in your show, we now can look forward to the rise of a new world beyond that, that is a better world.
Yeah, I think everything's necessary. I think we have to face the darkness for whatever it is. And I mean, again, this is where the New Age diverts people, because the way I see it is the only way out is through. You know, it's like if you break your leg, you're not just going to stick a plaster over it, are you? You're going to get a proper operation to fix it. And I think this is where we're at now, and I think it's going to affect every single person on the planet. People that have been burying their heads on the under the ground are really going to have to face all of this soon. And I guess it's down to people like yourself and others that just not from an egotistical point of view, but just to be there ready and to be a platform where, you know, people feel safe to hear this stuff and feel like they're not alone. So I definitely think that it's not going to be easy. We still need to do a lot more work. But I think we'll definitely get there. And I think what we also need to do is try and live in truth in our own lives as well as best we can. And, you know, let's bring integrity back. Let's bring morality back. Let's bring all those lost qualities that, you know, because it's so inverted at the moment. You look at things that are fashionable, like ignorance, and, you know, we have people like Paris Hilton and Kim Kardashian promoting stupidity, and, you know, everyone's out for themselves. So it's bringing back those fundamental qualities that make humans great, because I think what's happened is we've become so disconnected from our true nature, because in our true nature, I think we're genius. And I think you only have to look at the amount of different entities and AI and stuff that's trying to use us as batteries to realize how powerful we are. I mean, it's the cosmic joke, really, that humans are not powerful. But we need to get back to basics and what we are as a species before we've had all this mind control, this, you know, interference and everything like that. Because I think in our true nature, we are great as a species. And, you know, that would be great to see if we can regain that. And
absolutely. Tony, these implants that you speak of, is there a certain place where most of them come from, or do they come from various places?
Well, it's all fourth dimensional. So they've been implanted, some of them from birth. Some people are more targeted than other people. Some people have certain blueprints that just, even because this is something else that I'll go into, I might as well go into it now.
Sure.
The astrological signs are being used as barcodes. Okay, so basically, before, on a soul level, you choose your parents, but certain people, by their barcode, the matrix can see that they're going to be a threat. You know, maybe they'll be a trailblazer, or just their open-heartedness, or whatever their quality. Maybe they've got psychic abilities, so they'll see this soul coming into the body via the barcode. And what's even happening is there's birth bumping going on, where souls are bumped into dysfunctional families. Quite often, I work with people that feel like they were born into the wrong families. these souls can go on to experience sexual abuse, physical abuse, you know, and they're targeted from the day they were born. And so what they end up doing is they end up either turning to drugs or alcohol, or they spend their whole life trying to heal themselves. So the Matrix has really put them off their path. And so yeah, that's also coming into play as well. So so my point was that some people are more targeted than others. So sorry, just on that point, a lot of these people that get born into these satanic ritual abuse families, they are birth bumped because they have certain qualities. I work with a lot of people that have been through that, very, very, very extremely strong souls, you know, and they've managed to keep their sense of humor, and you can see why they've been targeted. You can absolutely see why they've been targeted. And so some people are just by who they are, by their blueprint, more targeted than others. So we have generic implants. We all generally have the same algorithms, the same interfaces, the same kind of neuro implants and that kind of stuff. But there's also more individual targeting going on as well. So, you know, there's all kind of stuff going on at the moment, gang stalking and energy weapons coming into play. And this is also extending into the 4D. And so, yeah, it's really coming from there, and it affects people in different ways, as I say. But yeah, that's where it's coming from.
Interesting. I've had a couple people ask this question in the chat room. What are your feelings in regards to the pineal gland?
I feel that pineal gland is a good thing. I think it's some people have said it's implants. I've not come across that in my work.
Okay.
We do have a lot of hijacking around the pineal gland. So quite often I find like a metal casing around it in the etheric that's kind of trying to shut it down. Some people have it really highly targeted. So, you know, there can be other devices around that. But yeah, so the pineal, I feel, and based on what I know, is an area that's actually very targeted. And you can see how they've worshipped the pineal gland throughout history. You know, you look at some of the statues around the Vatican, and they know that there's something in the pineal.
Interesting. A concept that I've often thought of, and I want to move after this, if we can, to your ideas about the matrix coming down. And maybe this is a great segue, because I've always thought about us, and you talk about us as AI, or kind of a motherboard, and we're in this matrix, and they're feeding off of us, and they've got connectors into us, and implants into us. Is it incumbent upon us, Tony, to learn to be the virus in the matrix and infect and destroy the matrix from within? Is that a possibility?
Yeah. So I mean, human will and the human spirit is also very, very powerful. So it's almost like this tech is very strong, but we also have our human spirit and our human will, which can virus the virus, I guess. And I guess that's what people like yourself and me and others are doing, is we've realized that this is a virus, and so we're infecting the virus ourselves. So yeah, it is kind of like that for sure.
Interesting. Now, I noticed one of the videos on your channel that talked about the collapse of the matrix or the destruction of the matrix. What are your thoughts along those lines?
Okay, so I think it's on multiple levels. I think just looking at the surface level stuff, the corruption of politicians and all that, although we need to look there, it's not really where this is coming from. It is coming from 4D. And the more we can, the more we can work on ourselves, heal ourselves, and clear ourselves of this and raise our own frequencies, then I think eventually it will come down. It's just how long it takes and how much pain and suffering we have to go through. So, this is why the 5G's coming out and they want the planet radiated and stuff, because they need this energy dense, because they know that our frequency's increasing. And so it's almost like a race, you know, it's a race between human consciousness and the rise of human frequency. And if they can get this stuff implemented and people locked down before enough numbers wake up. So but I see it on the energetic level that they're really panicking and really struggling. And
I agree with you. I see that as well.
I go back to what I said before. I think we're in the death throes of evil right now, and
no doubt.
I think they'd like all this stuff implemented, but I don't. You know, trying to control 7 billion people, that's a hell of a task. And I think that the thing is with these things, they're arrogant, and I think it will be their arrogance that will be their downfall. I mean, some of the stuff that gets put out in the media, you can almost tell it's like mockery. Some of the false flags and stuff. It's almost like, look at what we can do, and most people will still believe us. But I think it's that arrogance that will be their downfall in the end. I think, you know, they've slipped up a few times with a few things. And, you know, I don't see how, you know, there's just so many people now that are starting to look beyond the veil. And, you know, there is an awakening from the awakening, although it's slow, it's gathering pace. And it's going to be a very interesting few years, and interesting time to be alive. And I think it's that Chinese proverb, isn't there? May you live in interesting times. And we're definitely in that at the moment. But it's extremely challenging, especially for people that are looking beyond the veil. You know, everything's being thrown at us. You've probably experienced it yourself. You know, we get hurdles thrown in our way because they don't want us doing what we're doing. And you know, we just got to keep driving this home on all levels. And but I think what also goes missing, especially in conspiracy circles and things like that, and I used to be, you know, I still am really, but it's just the fact that we need to heal ourselves as well. I think there's a lot of us that are angry at the world, and we're projecting out our own inner wounds, our childhood wounds, and really that's matrix energy as well. They love that energy. So we have to do our own work, and, you know, we need to look after our physical bodies. We need to look after our inner world, and really tighten up on our own stuff as well, because I think the world is also a reflection of what's going on inside of us. There's a lot of pain and trauma in the world, because a lot of us are in pain and trauma. And it's something that I think gets missed a lot, in the fact, all right, yeah, the world needs healing, but we need to heal ourselves as well.
That has to start there. I see Jen Morris in the chat room, and I believe that Jen and I worked together on either closing or removing her chakras, and she asked a great question. Would you recommend that people keep their third eye open then?
Yeah, I think the third eye just, you know, it allows us to see beyond the veil. And this is why there's so much interference around the pineal. This is why they fluoridate the water. You know, they want to shut the pineal gland down. So, you know, the psychics, or I mean, everyone's psychic. It's just human beings have forgotten. You know, they've got these abilities. It's just some people have developed their skills more than others, and you know, part of that is the fluoridation of the pineal, and, you know, the heavy metals. You know, this is why there's heavy metals and stuff. So I would say, you know, to have that, you know, is a gift really. And you know, it's targeted for a reason, both etherically and in the third dimension. So
how do we overcome, with all of the problems we're facing and the enemy that's very real, how do you recommend people overcome fear?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it goes back to the fundamentals in that, as I said earlier, that the cosmic joke is that humans are not powerful, and when we're being used as batteries, because we are so powerful. So when we're talking about entities and stuff attaching and all this stuff, and yeah, I mean, they can cause really, really bad problems sometimes, depending on the level of attachment and stuff. And of course, it's good to clear oneself of them. But we always have to remember that they need us more than we need them. And without us, they're toast. And you know, this is why I see so much interference before sessions, because they know they're toast. So it's having that spiritual streetwise is what I would describe it as, an awareness. But you know, when we start slipping into fear and paranoia, then that's when you know, that they'll just feed on that energy. So it's doing what we need to do, taking action, and just you know, making sure we don't slip into those frequencies that they feed on.
Excellent. Well, with everything that's going on in the world today, energetically, psychically, and just real world, I'll put you on the spot as we get ready to wrap up. What would you, Tony, say if someone said to you, what's the top 3 things that you think I should be doing right now to get myself to where I need to be in this world, both physically, psychically, and energetically?
I would say it's like, the short answer is it's spinning plates. Okay, so
yep.
it's constantly juggling those plates, spinning those plates. It's detoxing from heavy metals, keeping your diet clean. I mean, you know, this talking about like poison, you know, like alcohol is the number 1 poison out there. How many of us are still drinking alcohol?
That's like a tough thing, Terry, because I found that out a few years ago. I literally became, I say, allergic to alcohol, and I think that has to do with some of frequency change. But there's a lot of people that are in our realm that still enjoy their alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're talking about poison coming through the air. Well, the number 1 poison and is alcohol. And you know, this is really important when you're talking about entity attachments, because they call it spirits for a reason, right?
Ooh, somebody just said that in the chat room.
Yeah. And actually the word alcohol comes from the Arabic term alcohol, which is a demonic entity. And so when we're drinking, we're basically opening ourselves up to attachment. And you only have to see how people behave. And I'm not saying I'm an angel or perfect, or, you know, I've had my days getting drunk and stuff. But the point is that, you know, we need to stop doing what's causing the issues. And so, you know, is keeping your own energy clean is the number 1 thing, because this is how these things get in and attach. So it's cleaning up our diet, cleaning up our habits, detoxing from heavy metals on a physical level, but also internally, as I already spoken about, doing the inner work, doing the subconscious work. Even if you think you know you've had a decent childhood or whatever, you know, there can be stuff there, generational stuff, and plugging those holes that they can get into, and yeah, just so preventing them from coming in on those and becoming whole again, because we're so fragmented through our subconscious, because as children, our subconscious mind fragments when we go through traumas, that we're all like Humpty Dumpty. So putting us back together again, emotionally, subconsciously, physically, and of course, you know, energetically as well. You know, whatever your thing is with you know, the sessions that I do, or you know, whatever your thing is, just spinning those plates and just keeping your, you know, making sure everything's as clean as you can keep it. And by doing that, it's a big middle finger up to the system, because the system does everything to keep us into those bad. We're in like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory of, you know, stuff that we can get involved in that's going to lower our frequency and vibration.
Absolutely. So Tony, if people want to learn more about your work or want to get involved in some of the services that you offer, where do they need to go to?
Okay, so I have a YouTube channel, which is Tony Sayers, and I have a website, which is called transcendingtimes.org. So they can find all about the services that I offer there, blogs and stuff like that. So
transcendingtimes.org.
.org. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think I just called you Terry. I apologize for that.
No, that's fine. Or, email tony@transcendingtimes.org. Or Facebook. I'm on Facebook as well.
And just to repeat, it is Tony Sayers, not Terry. Tony. It's Tony Sayers, like Tony the Tiger, because he's ready to help you break out of this zoo.
Tony Sayers, yeah. So if you just look me up on YouTube or Facebook, and Transcending Times is the website, so they can contact me through there.
Tony Sayers on YouTube. Transcending Times is the website. Take a look at his information, folks. Go ahead and subscribe to his channel and make yourself avail yourself of great people like this that are in the genre with their eyes wide open, not accepting, not drinking the Kool-Aid. We need new age whistleblowers, and we're so thankful, Tony, that you are one. It's been an honor and a privilege to have you here, and we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeff, for having me on, and thank you to all your listeners for hearing me out, and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Hold on just 1 second so I can say goodbye to you personally. To all of you in the chat room, as always, much love and appreciation, and I'm just here to remind you again, we're the last generation of real humans. History's written by the winners. Let's get together, let's get busy, and let's win. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower, for Tony Sayers of Transcending Times. We appreciate you being with us today, and we'll see you again real soon.